Okay, this is actually going to be good because this completely takes what I was going to be teaching for today out the window. So we're doing a pivot. Yeah, literally out the window. Window is gone. All right, good morning. Welcome. Hello, everybody. This is your movement, but very little movement typically. Mindfulness and meditation. 5 weeks till the end of April. Yeah, this is actually going to be good. So we're going to get right into a meditation, 10 minutes. It's going to feel different because the environment has now changed. Those of us that have been here before, we've never dealt with this, open windows. We've never dealt with that to the same degree. Birds, probably going to be people walking. There's going to be breezes coming and going. The environment has changed. So I don't want to talk too much about it right now because we can break down why the experience feels the way it does. I will still guide for the first 10 minutes of this meditation, but we'll then talk about why meditation feels different when we have more environment to work with as opposed to windows being closed, room is silent, body is still, and all of that. So let's take a few moments. Those of us that have been meditating with me previously, you'll find a comfortable shape. You are accustomed to knowing what that comfortable shape is. But for the rest of us, take a few moments. You have a wall if needed. If needed. If you can work with the strength of your own upper back, great, your whole back body. If you need it, the wall is there. Legs can be crossed. One or both legs may be extended. You may decide if you need blocks, you can have them underneath your knees, underneath your thighs, just for some support around your hips. When it comes to resting your hands, let your hands rest either on your knees, on your legs, in your lap, whatever feels most comfortable with that. If you have the capacity to work with your eyes closed, that's it. Hi. Oh, I thought it was the wind.
Yeah.
Cool. Take a seat. So Nathan, you're getting a crash course. We're going right into a meditation right now. Great. Take two. Take a few moments finding a comfortable shape. Legs extended, legs crossed, back against the wall, back off of the wall. Hands in your legs, hands in your lap. Whatever feels most comfortable is what we try to find. Before we even establish a connection to ourselves with today's meditation practice, a little bit of acceptance may be needed. We need to accept that the environment has changed. Wind will be blowing, leaves will be rustling, birds will be chirping, and other things that we may not even foresee may happen. But if we can acknowledge that these things may happen, we can accept them if they happen. We understand that this meditation is bound to be different than a typical meditation in which the doors are closed, the room is quieter, there's less environmental distractions, and that's okay. When it comes to the practice of our meditation, we try our best to bring attention to our breath. And even connecting to your own breath may be a bit of a challenge this morning. Because with the breeze around you, you may end up feeling the breeze entering your nose as opposed to natural breath entering your nose. So we try to understand that there's 3 typical spaces where we can connect to our breath. Typically, in and out through the nostrils, but also deeper down into the body. For some of us, around the chest, for some of us, around the belly. So if working with your breath around your nostrils is a bit challenging, see if you can connect to your breathing somewhere lower. Feel the expansion and contraction around your chest and belly, the movement around your rib cage. And what we're hoping to do is to keep our undivided attention on our breath. So what that means for us, anytime a distraction comes up, good distraction, bad distraction, doesn't matter. We notice it, we acknowledge it, we may have to accept that it has distracted us, and we let it go. If it's something truly important to you, it can be set aside. But for most of us, the distractions that come up within our meditation are typically nonsense. They don't serve a purpose. They only serve to distract. So we don't have to be hard on ourselves when distractions come up. We acknowledge, we accept, we let go, we come back. As we continue breathing, we learn to balance out the softness of our bodies with the sharpness of our minds. So we don't want our awareness to drift completely into the soft nature of our body, to the degree that we become drowsy, dull, and disengaged. But we also don't want to teeter too far into the awareness of the mind, becoming hyper aware of everything around us, each sound, each distraction. Balance. And what reflects balance best is your breath. A smooth breath, steady breath, slow breath, soft breath. Understanding that frustration is not necessary when we become distracted. Noticing a distraction, noticing that you've been distracted is a moment of mindfulness. Distractions present opportunities for you to come back. Whether that distraction is from the physical body, from a thought within the mind, from an emotion that washes over you. We come back to our breath. As we come to the end of our meditation, let's take a few deep breaths to connect back to ourselves. Some tiny movements, if needed, into your fingers and toes. But my preference, as some of you know, is that when you feel ready, palms can come together. We can create heat within our hands. And when you do feel ready, allowing for that heat to wash over your face as you take your time to reopen your eyes. So before we even discuss, we just take a few moments to notice how we may feel now at the end of a meditation. 10 minutes is what that was. For some of us, it may have felt longer, some of us shorter. But just maybe noticing how you may have felt before and what may have changed over the course of 10 minutes. And then in terms of very simple reflections, feel free to share. What did you notice this time around? So for some of us that have been here before with closed doors versus open, and just feel free to share if this is your first time as well. What did you notice about this particular experience?
I felt really grateful. It's just like I could feel the warm breeze come in every once in a while. And, my mind would sort of wander, but then I could hear a bird, like, oh, gotta kind of come back to the present moment. And so I felt really grateful.
So it's the idea of being here. Humans and nature are in tune with one another. We have a direct relationship to the environment around us. And here is a very simple moment in which we are just sitting and breathing, and we can be grateful for a breeze that enters. Something we may not pay much consideration to in our day-to-day life. Thank you for sharing. Did you have a hand up?
I found it easier to be present because I felt like the sounds were stopped me from being distracted. Like that in itself was a distraction, and that it's like, you know, when you listen to music and you meditate or like some sound, this was the sound. So just focusing on nature and the sounds and everything prevented me from going anywhere else. So my mind was quieter. Is that weird?
No. Could you do the same with the sound of construction?
No.
But why not?
There was just something. I think it came from a place of gratefulness. I was just so happy.
Of course. I'm just pulling on you. You're pulling on you. Yeah. It's the idea being sound is just sound, but we have an association with these type of sounds. Most birds we hear, they're nice, they're peaceful. But what if we heard seagulls for 10 minutes? Would it still be as peaceful? Maybe not. If it was a cold breeze coming in, would we still feel grateful for that breeze? It's very interesting how these emotional connections to the environment play a direct role in whether we connect deeper to the present moment or whether we resist the present moment that much more. Once again, thank you for sharing. Anybody else wish to share? There's no right or wrong way to share. And if you don't want to share, there's no issue behind it. We still have other reflection questions that we can talk about. Was your mind quiet? Could it quiet down despite hearing the rustling of leaves, feeling the wind coming and going, hearing birds come and go? Was your mind able to find a space of quiet? Good, great.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because so in this particular case, what's mind? Because for me, two different, I can notice two different things. My mind, one is my mind is so chatty. What is this? What is that? It's talking to me. But the other side of my mind is so quiet, and then I actually listen to that. And then I hear you, but I'm just keep on focusing on the nature or breathing and back and forth. So I just harmonize the things. So I don't know, one side is very quiet, and one side is very chatty. But those are all me. So
They are all you. So that's a really unique. It's a very unique point that you've brought up. So what we try to understand is that what you're explaining is the surfacing of thoughts. The thought that comes up, the body that makes noise, the breeze that you feel. These are all very surface level sensations, physical sensations, mental sensations, emotional sensations. Where the average person runs into problems is that one thought, my body aches, my knee hurts, becomes 2, 3, 4, 5 thoughts. My knee aches, okay, so now I gotta move my knee. Okay, now I gotta put a block underneath my knee. Okay, now I gotta shift. Okay, now I gotta do all of these things. So the initial surface, something came to the surface. Instead of just letting it come to the surface and coming back down, we started pulling more out. And that is where we run into the problem of multiplication of thoughts, multiplication of our suffering, we can call it. So what you've done in that sense of what you just described, you noticed these things coming up, the thought, the feeling, but you came back. And that is the very important aspect of our practice. Sound of a bird may help us come back. We may realize, I'm thinking, oh, bird. Wait, bird? Oh, I'm meditating. I come back to the moment. Or even in the simple sense of your breath. You're disappearing, your mind's disappearing into thoughts, but you're coming back to your breath. You remember that you're breathing. That's kind of the cool thing about breath, and I've said this in the past. Breath doesn't go anywhere. When we lose the breath, it's not that we stopped breathing, otherwise we'd be in big trouble. We're still breathing. It's just that the mind has left the breath. Mind was hand in hand with the breath. As the mind was breathing in, or as the breath was coming in and out, mind was watching breath coming and going, inhaling and exhaling. But then a very seductive thought comes up. The warm breeze comes and it somehow brings you back to a memory from last year in which you were on a beach, for example. And so your mind spends a few minutes playing out this memory on a beach. Anything inherently negative with that? No, you're not hurting yourself. But you forget that what you're supposed to be doing in this moment is just focusing on breath. And what we're doing is bringing all of our attention onto one thing, which is breathing. So we're not breathing passively and then remembering the beach that we were at. We know that the memory of the beach is somewhere in here. We can come back to it. So we set it aside and we come back to our breathing. And in that way, it's a very powerful skill to train your attention. Because what we realize is that our attention span as human beings has dropped significantly since technology was introduced. I do believe that the statistic now is that the joke is made is that we have a worse attention span than a goldfish at this point in time, but our attention span has about halved from where it was in the early 2000s, which I think it correlates to somewhere between from being able to maintain attention for about 15 seconds on something, it's about 7. 6, 7. Right? So it's gotten to the degree where it's considered successful to be able to, put away your phone for 5 minutes to focus on one thing because of just how much of an allure it is. So there's nothing wrong with noticing these things, but it takes willpower to say, I'm not going to think about all of that. I'm going to come back to my breath. And that is strength that you're cultivating up here. Was it easy to stay focused with your breath despite all of the things happening around you? Slightly different. Wall is no longer buffering the wind that comes in, so every breeze has the chance of taking you away. Every sound of a bird has the chance of taking you away. You hear footsteps or the gate, chance of you slipping away. So was it easy, relatively speaking, to stay with the breath or to come back to the breath?
Can I just, on that note, I feel like I went into the practice with acceptance of my surroundings, because we have done this practice with the doors closed. And if you hear a bird or you hear a sound, I think once we did in the wind, remember the wind was pushing us, and it was distracting because it caught us by surprise. So it's interesting that a bird with the doors closed is distracting, but a bird with the doors open kept me grounded and present. So I'm just highlighting the fact that I went into it with acceptance, right? And knowing that it was going to be like that, whereas when the doors are closed, I have different expectations.
And how powerful is that, right? Instead of being forced to accept something midway through, you start from a place of acceptance. That we can accept that this meditation, with all of its obstacles that have been presented, it is imperfectly perfect. Because we can work with these distractions because we're starting from a place of acceptance, not resistance. But naturally, when the doors are closed, we're not expecting to be distracted by wind or sounds. And when they come into the room or into our practice, they do become that distraction. But here we're able to work a little bit more harmoniously within our environment to accept the sound, to accept the breeze, to accept whatever is out there. So the highlight being there is that acceptance is one of the main pillars of a meditation practice. We don't have to be upset at the environment, whether it's the external environment or our internal environment. We have to learn to work with it. And that's a challenging part of this, because we have an idea of how meditation should be. And when it gets disrupted, whether it's sound, whether it's thought, whether it's the body making noise, we usually start from a place of resistance because we want things to be different from the way they are. And the sooner we can go from resistance to acceptance, the more meaningful the experience can be, because each obstacle presents a learning opportunity. So it's understanding that each obstacle that we can notice on the way is an opportunity for us to come back to who we are. So I guess what we're trying to understand here is we train our bodies. We train the physical body. If we are out of shape, if we are low in energy, we have means of training the body. You go for a walk, you go to the gym, you go do your Pilates and your pulses and all that, and you have that means to work your body out. At our jobs that we have, we train skills. And by training certain skills, we line up for promotions and raises, and there's succession in that way. But we rarely train the true faculty of our mind, which is being aware, which is being fully present, which means bringing all of your attention into the present moment. That is what mindfulness is. I've talked about this in the past once again. Our ability to be mindful is a choice that we make. It is an energy that we're choosing to invest our attention towards. Or rather, it is an investment of our attention into the present moment. Otherwise, we can't really be half mindful. Then we're drifting towards mindless. For you to be mindful, the hope is that you can dedicate 100% of your awareness, your attention, your energy into what is happening right here, right now. And what's happening right here, right now, for most of us, isn't anything special. We are sitting, we are listening, I am talking. But are you fully engaged with listening on the receiving end? Or is half of your mind listening and then there's another half of, okay, what's for lunch later on? You know, it's Tuesday, I gotta do these errands later. And these are common things. It might not be happening right now because maybe you like listening to my voice. But later on in the day when someone's talking to you and you don't really care to listen to them, can you still bother to listen to them? Can you give them your attention? Can you give them your space to hold space for them? That is the whole exchange of mindfulness. So in that sense, what we do with ourselves when we sit is hopefully an extension of what we can do with others when we open our eyes. Because when we're sitting, we're listening to what is happening within us. We're listening to the body as it makes all of its different noises. Stomach makes noise, bones make noise, muscles make noise. We hear it, but we don't have to indulge it. The stomach is hungry, sure, it makes a little grumbling sound. But at this point in time, especially if there's no food to be had, what can we do about it? Nothing. But we can acknowledge it. I hear you, stomach, you're making a lot of noise. I literally hear you. And when time comes, food is there. But it's not a life or death situation that requires 100% of your attention to be given to the belly. So we set it aside. We let go of the hold that it's trying to place on top of us. Same thing with the mind or emotions that come up. If there's something that can be done in the immediate moment to address it, no problem. But for a lot of the things that come up when we're sitting to meditate, like I said, nonsense. Things that are happening, that have happened yesterday, things that are bound to happen later on today or later on in the week. But at this point in time, the task is simple. We breathe. We give all of our attention to this connection to ourselves. And so the reason why we want to use the breath is that it is a tool that we always have with us. There are other objects of meditation that can be used. There's a very cool style of meditation in which you light a candle and you stare at the candle. Still, breathing happens kind of there. You're still focused, centered on the breath, but all of your attention just goes towards the flickering of a candle light. Sometimes I go towards a river, and it's very cool how your eyes want to move, but you're asked to just follow or stay with one point of reference in the river. But you'll notice that as the stream goes by, your eyes dart side to side. All you're being asked to do is find a single point to focus on. Breath remains smooth, breath remains steady, but you'll notice that the distractions drag your attention away. With eyes closed, life becomes a little bit simpler because we're not stimulated by the environment around us. So we don't have to see people that walk by or leaves that rustle by. We can shift all of that attention inwards to where we feel breath, nose, chest, belly. Just show of hands, did we have a bit of difficulty feeling breath at points in time due to breeze? No, good, great. Maybe that story would have been a bit different if we sat outside because we would have less buffer. So I guess just to allude to what you said, the sounds that we have here at our disposal, they're nice. They're grounding, they connect us to nature. It would be probably a bit more of a stressful meditation if that lawn being mowed right now was this lawn here. If some of the traffic sound was much closer to us. We have a few buffer of streets before we get to Lakeshore, but here we are, we have this nice serene space. But what this tells us when it comes to the mind, that these problems aren't meditation problems. It's not the sound of the traffic that creates a problem for the meditation. The sound of the traffic creates a problem for the mind, because the mind reacts to the sound of traffic. The mind reacts to an email that you receive at 4:59 p.m. when you're supposed to be finished at 5. That The mind is what is reacting to the conversation that you don't want to get involved in. It's not the thing itself, it is how you relate to the thing that for many of us is the problem. That we end up reacting to the event instead of holding space for the event. And it's not to say that you should then go meditate to the sounds of traffic and construction. That is not the intention here. But it's understanding that for most of us, the problems aren't from the situation itself, but it's how we react to the situation. And it's very simple. It comes back to the example that I brought up in the last session about being afraid of a toothless chihuahua. Right? It's not the situation at hand that presents the issue. So the example that I brought up last time, some of you might know of a person who's deathly terrified of a dog. Doesn't matter how soft the dog is, fluffy the dog is, kind the dog is, harmless the dog is, they're just scared of dogs. Doesn't matter if, in my example, it was a 14-year-old toothless chihuahua. No harm can be imposed. But we don't know if in that person's childhood, dozens of years ago, decades ago, that person got bit by a dog. Got bit by a dog, whether they even remember that it was their fault that they got bit by the dog or not, that detail doesn't slip into the mind. It is the end result, which was the trauma of being bit by a dog. And it could have been a very mean, angry dog, big German Shepherd, as opposed to a toothless Chihuahua. But what we see is a situation. This person walking down the street sees a dog. In their mind, they don't distinguish the fact that this dog in front of them, very different from the dog that caused their trauma. It's all blurred as one. So instantly reaction comes up. They get hesitant around the dog. They back away from the dog. They run from the dog. Doesn't matter if the dog doesn't even acknowledge their existence. They are deathly terrified of the dog. And so in that sense, this connects us to the fact that this mind of ours carries a lot of unconscious baggage that we have no idea about. But things that have happened to us 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30, go back to the time where you can't even go back to. But there are things that have probably happened in your life that have shaped you into who you are today. You look different, you act different, you have different values, different personalities, but there's parts of you that still seep into today from a point in time that you have no recollection of. And what meditation gives you the power to do is let go, to relax some of that hold that this unconscious conditioning has around you. So this person scared of the Chihuahua could make a choice. They can repeat all of their habits of being deathly terrified of every single dog that they meet, or they hold space. Hold space with palm coming out in front of the dog, letting the dog sniff, letting the dog lick. Whatever happens from there, happens. That will shape a new experience. But it requires willpower to do that. It requires a sense of inner strength to do that. Because you can tell a person, my dog is harmless, wouldn't hurt a baby. But they might not believe you because they've had this past conditioning. And so what meditation allows us to do is it trains the mind to build capacity, to hold space for yourself when stress seeps in, when an uncomfortable situation comes in, when things out of your control start to creep up. And it gives you choices. For most of us, we don't offer ourselves a choice because we don't pause. So the moment something comes up, a stimulus comes up, we are very quick to react to it. And what meditation does is it creates a buffer between the situation, the stimulus, the sensation, the thought, the feeling, the emotion, and how you react to it. So that your reaction isn't a blind reaction. It's not a conditioned reaction, but it can be more of a mindful response to it. Does that make sense? A lot to throw at you right in day one, but that's okay. So where we can go with a practice like this, the most tangible thing that I run into as the person teaching meditation is that people tell me they don't have time to meditate, which is unfortunate because I really wish you did. But then the understanding has to be is, how much time do you think you need to meditate? So 1, 2, 3, 4. How much time do you, since you are new with me, how much time do you think you need to meditate?
20 minutes.
5.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Oh, look at you.
Look at that. Look at how wise of an answer that was. Why do you think 1 minute? What can you possibly get done in 1 minute? 1 minute? You kidding me? I can barely sit down.
It's just an example, if you have an appointment, you're sitting in your car, you take a deep breath. It's going to be, you think it might be a stressful appointment or
But
you're
one breath?
anxious.
One breath? What the heck can I do with one breath?
1 to 4 breaths before you go in, and you just calm your body and mind.
I wish you would have stuck to your guns on one breath.
You're right.
Have you been sending her my YouTube videos? What's the deal here?
I've been meditating for a while.
She's very wise.
I've been meditating
Yes.
for a while. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And we can probably all somewhat agree.
Yeah.
We may think we need excessive time. But we need to find the value that 1 minute can bring us first before we wish to indulge 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So there is first an understanding. You have to value the qualities that get created from a meditation practice. If you don't value a calm mind, if you don't value inner peace, if you don't value stability within your mind, then it's very hard for me to convince you that you should meditate. But you sit to meditate. Today we sat for 10 minutes. And in that 10-minute window, you might have had a few moments in which some peace was found, some steadiness of mind was created, some stability was cultivated. Those are very meaningful moments in that 10-minute window. It's not to say all 10 minutes were easy peasy. Next thing you know, you've hit Nirvana, enlightenment, and now you can sit here. But in those moments, we feel something. We feel a steadiness, a silence, a stillness. And as much as we may need extended periods of time to find those little moments, sitting down, anytime you sit somewhere where you're waiting, standing in line waiting, anything where this thing becomes the default option to pull out, which is a very simple thing. I see it in myself, and I'm supposed to be the one teaching you guys not to. But I can be very aware of when the mind just wants something to feed it. And it's fed stimulation, it's fed dopamine by opening this up. Who's texted me? What notifications have I got? Even the things you don't care for. Who sent me an email? I don't care to check my emails. Who sent me an email? I don't care. But the mind cares because it wants something to react to. And how empowering it can be from time to time to just say, no, put it away. I think there was a study done, and they did 3 different controls. Control 1 was, I think, and I could be slightly wrong with it. Control 1 was have a phone next to you face down. Control 2 was to have a phone a couple of feet behind you in like a backpack. And control number 3 was to have a phone in the other room. And they found that the one that allowed the mind to focus the most was the phone in the other room. Even though in all 3 of those controls, the phone was never touched. Phone was there, but it was never touched. Phone was back there, it was never touched. Phone was in the other room, never touched. But what they were able to do when they highlight all the different spaces of the brain is that when there was literal distance created and there was no possibility of seeing what could be on the other side of the screen, that the mind could spend more time focusing on the present moment.
My daughter does that when she studies. She'll put her phone on her nightstand.
Good.
Yeah, she never allows it in her room.
So
That's her own thing.
these are very simple mindfulness habits to have. One very unique one that I like is when you're at home, turn your phone into a landline, which means place your phone in one place. And if you ever need to go use your phone, no problem, go use your phone, but it can only be used in that one place. So wherever typically we would have our original telephones, could be in the kitchen, could be in the living room somewhere, place your phone there. You need to go use it, no problem. Go walk there from wherever you are in the house, use it, put it back there, then go back to what you're doing. Don't bring your phone to your bedroom. Doesn't serve much of a purpose if you're trying to wind down at night. You looking at TikToks and Reels and doping up your brain even more just makes it that much harder to slow down. When we wake up first thing in the morning, we don't need to know what the news is. We need to check in with ourselves first. Yes, there's tons of things happening in the world that demand your attention. But can you offer yourself attention first? These little bits of space that we can create can allow us to create more of a grounded state of mind for ourselves. We can be more grounded within ourselves simply. And grounding is just having mind in body, to ground, to feel your connection to the ground. Otherwise, what I say is, without a connection to breath, we are a body that moves and a mind that thinks, but there's very little harmony between the two. And so what I believe is that my breath is my spiritual connection to life. Spiritual, not in any woo-woo kind of way, no mystical kind of way, no religious kind of way. My spirit, and you can be very open-ended with how you determine that to be, but spirit just being your direct connection to yourself, to who you are, to what you are. And it's your breath. This container that we have, which is this physical body, receives breath, releases breath. But we are very unaware of that happening. And what meditation allows us to do in little moments of time is that it brings connection back to ourselves. Very simple, stupidly simple, but very special. And we can make it that special thing. 1 minute. 1 minute, all we could possibly need to start. And if we can see how much space can be created in 1 minute, naturally it becomes a little bit addicting because we want to have a little bit more space. So if 1 minute can create a bit of space, imagine how much potentially 5 minutes could create, 10 minutes can create. But then we have to just be mindful that we don't run into the trap of escaping from life with meditation. And that becomes another thing. Another thing that we have to understand. Sitting down, closing your eyes, crossing your legs, hands wherever, sitting to meditate, is only one half of the meditation game. How you then act when you open your eyes, move into the world, is a true reflection of your meditation. Because if you're not a nice person to yourself when you close your eyes and sit to meditate, very hard to be a nice person when you open your eyes. So the hope being is that that niceness that you create, the kindness that you create to yourself, can then be extended outwards as well to others that you meet. Sorry, got to check my notes one more time. Yeah, I guess that was one of the main ideas. We don't need an hour. We don't even need silence. Those things help. They help. But what we just need is 1 moment to come back to ourselves. And so if there's one thing that this kind of class can teach us, is that there is a lot of value that we can find in 1 minute. We start with that. And we try to see how we can extend these 1 minute windows into other things that we do in our day, like brushing our teeth. When we brush our teeth, the hand moves across the mouth, but is the mind here? Or is the mind in the busy morning planning the rest of the day? Potentially. When we're eating, drinking, making food, doing something, are we fully there in the experience of it happening, or are we elsewhere? Maybe yes, maybe no. And it's not that we have to be hard on ourselves when we do disappear, because understanding what I'm saying, we can probably notice that a lot of the times that we do these things, we're not fully there. Once again, me included. We live busy lives. From the moment we wake up to the time we go to sleep, we're typically just doing things. Good things, bad things, slow, fast, doesn't matter. The mind moves, the body moves, we just move along with it. Distraction. But what we just try our best to do from time to time is pause. So practical ways that we can meditate. Wake up in the morning. Before you leave your bedroom, spend a couple of minutes. Check in with yourself. As much as meditation can be used as a tool to develop attention, it is also a very useful tool to bring awareness to what is happening and what is within us. So you wake up in the morning, do your morning routine. Before you leave your bedroom, a couple of minutes, just notice how the body and mind feel this morning. Body and mind always changing. Mind may be a bit dull, maybe poor sleep. Body may be tired, maybe stiff, maybe busy day from the day before. But accepting the body and mind as your day starts, very powerful then to work with that state of mind and that type of body for the rest of the day. Things are bound to change, no doubt, but it lessens the resistance you may have to starting your day. Morning moves through, you reach afternoon. For a lot of us, that's just a window of time once again, in which a couple of minutes can be spent to reflect on the morning. Is there anything that you're holding on to, anything that's gotten you down, weighing you down that you can release? Releasing just means that you just don't bring it into the next part of your day. And the example that we used in previous sessions, because I'm glad you mentioned a minute, and I still haven't bothered to figure out which hospital it is, but I assure you there was a hospital that this alludes to. But they did a meditation practice at a hospital where every hour on the hour a bell would ring over the PA system. And the request would be simple. For 1 minute, doctors, nurses, unless you're in the middle of surgery, I guess you can't really stop at that point, but wherever you are in the hospital, staff, employee, can you pause for 1 minute to breathe? And where my mind tries to think of creating space and releasing and letting go, because I've had one of the ladies that comes to one of my other classes, she is a nurse, but you're working long shifts, not just 8-hour shifts, but double-digit hour shifts. And if we think about, just my mind goes to extreme examples to understand how important meditation can be. You start your shift as a nurse. 20 minutes into your shift, 30 minutes, an hour, whenever. Early on in your shift, very tragic patient comes into the ER. Catastrophic injuries, nothing that you do and you try your best can help, and they pass away. It's not your fault, but there is weight associated with that. You still got 12 hours to go on your shift. It is not to deny the humanity of what has happened. You're not ignoring what has happened, but you still have to be fully there for the next 12 hours for the next person that comes into that ER. So in that sense, you don't have the luxury in that sense to go spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour to release. But even 1 minute can be enough to create space. To set it aside so that when the time comes, maybe at the end of your shift, when you and the rest of your colleagues can commiserate together over drinks, over whatever, healthy, unhealthy, that doesn't matter at this point in time. But to have that proper release later, yes, but to set something aside now can be very beneficial. Because there's probably things that we do and that have happened to us in which we let one moment bleed into the rest of our day. That we don't have the capacity to let it go, so we hold on to it very tightly. And how that ends up affecting us and those that we communicate with and interact with through the rest of our day. So I really like that you've mentioned that, because you've tied in a lot of what we were able to talk about today. My hope for, at least for today, is that you can understand the value that 1 minute of space can create. Physical space, mental space, emotional space, space is space. Everybody comes into these practices for different reasons, but typically it is to create some space. Space to find something or space to let go of something. But space is a very valuable thing that we can create. Even though we cannot necessarily see the space because it's not that kind of space, but we can feel the space. And if you can feel the value of 1 minute of space, then there is every possibility that you can decide to sit again to meditate. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions? We are approaching the end. Any final points I'd like to make? I think one of the last things to talk about, just understanding the nature of a meditation practice, is that a lot of people try to find peace in a meditation practice. And peace can be found, but I think peace is a byproduct of a meditation practice. I spoke to it before. There's a lot of baggage up here. And before we can experience the bliss of clearing all of this out, we also have to confront a lot of what we carry up here. Personal story, the first time I did one of my meditation retreats, and I'll talk to it a little bit more in the future, once a year I go spend 10 days in silence. No talking, no reading, no writing, no listening to music, no phones, no exercise. 10 days, sit to meditate. We're not allowed to sit outside to meditate. We have to sit indoors or in cells, in which it's basically like the size of that washroom, but dark. Cool story for another time, doesn't matter. But the first time I attended one of these meditation retreats, you're on a vegetarian diet, you're fasting for between 15 to 20 hours. So first time I went, I lost about 7 pounds. 7 pounds that I was able to put back after I restarted all my lifestyle habits. But how I felt leaving, and how I still feel to some degree, the glow is gone, yes, but how I felt leaving that experience was that the 7 pounds I lost wasn't physically off my body, but I felt 7 pounds lighter up here. And we all have weight up here that we've held on to, things that weigh us down. Some things, when it came to me letting go, I could identify maybe a handful of things that I could say I was at peace with. But a lot of the stuff that gets released is things you don't even realize you're holding on to, things that are very unconscious. And it's hard for me to articulate at this point in time, given we only have 2 minutes, of how something like not reacting to an itch can lead to lightness of the mind. But there is a connection to be made there. How not fidgeting when your knee is making noise can lead to peace of mind. Because this is a very real sensation that we feel. But what we feel in terms of the knee making noise, the itch on our skin, is no different than anger that comes in. It's no different than the thought of the future that comes in. So we'll talk about some of these other things in future weeks. But I hope that by the end of these 5 weeks, we can lose a couple of pounds up here. Yeah. Woo. We've turned meditation into a weight loss program, yeah. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will probably post bits and pieces of this class on my YouTube channel, so you can always go back towards that. Thank you all for joining today. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you.